The mistake. The sovereign blade cut through the darkness between stars like a knife through silk. Admiral Krelvac stood on the command deck, his 4 eyes reflecting the pale blue glow of distant Earth. Behind him, 3,000 warships waited, in formation, the pride of the Vorkath Empire, conquerors of 47 systems across the Orion Arm. Primitive, he muttered, watching the planet spin lazily below. Radio signals, chemical rockets, they still burn fossil fuels. His tactical officer, a young Vorkath named Cecik, shifted uncomfortably. Admiral, intelligence reports suggest. Intelligence? Krelvax's laugh was a clicking rasp. We've been watching them for 30 cycles. They fight amongst themselves. They poison their own world. They've barely touched their moon. He turned, his mandibles spreading wide in what his species considered a smile. They are children playing with fire, and we will take their world before they even understand what war truly means. The fleet descended. On Earth, in a bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Chen watched the same display. Her face was carved from stone, gray eyes reflecting data streams that had been silent for exactly 17 minutes. They've jammed every satellite we have, reported Lieutenant Marcus Webb, his hands dancing across holographic controls. NATO, China, Russia, everyone's blind. It's coordinated. Professional. How long until they reach the atmosphere? Chen asked. 40 minutes, maybe less. Around the command center, officers moved with practiced efficiency, but Sarah could see it in their eyes. The question nobody wanted to ask. What can we do against 3,000 alien warships? She reached for a red phone, an actual phone, old copper wires running through concrete and bedrock, immune to any jamming technology. It rang twice. Madam President, Sarah said quietly, it's time to wake them up. There was a long pause. Then, are you certain? Sarah looked at the alien fleet, spreading across her screen like a disease. They gave us no choice. Then do it, and may God forgive us for what we kept hidden. Sarah hung up and turned to Webb. Execute protocol silence. All channels. Shut down everything. Everything? Webb's voice cracked. General, that means every satellite, every broadcast station, every cell tower, every internet hub. Make Earth go dark. Complete communications blackout. Now. Webb hesitated only a moment, then his fingers flew. Across the globe, lights began to die. Screens went black. The digital heartbeat of human civilization flatlined. Admiral Krelvax noticed it immediately. They've stopped transmitting, Cecik reported. No signals at all. Even their emergency channels are dark. Fear, Krelvax decided. They've shut down to hide. It won't help them. But deep in that, bunker. Sarah Chen was typing a single command into a computer that had no connection to any network, protected by layers of lead and stone. The screen flickered green, displaying text that hadn't been seen in 200 years. Terra Defense Network status. Dormant awaiting activation code. She entered the code her grandmother had given her on her deathbed, a code passed down through 6 generations of the Chen family, guardians of a secret that predated the United Nations itself. The screen changed. Authorization accepted activating Silent Sentinel's estimated deployment. 12 minutes around the world in places forgotten by history. Ancient mechanisms stirred to life. Beneath the Sahara Desert, sand began to shift. Under the ice of Antarctica, something massive groaned awake. In the depths of the Mariana Trench, lights flickered on for the first time in centuries. And in orbits higher than any human satellite had ever reached, shadows began to move. The Vorkath fleet entered Earth's atmosphere in a display of overwhelming force. Their ships burned through the sky like falling stars, heading for major population centers. Krelvax had calculated carefully. Simultaneous strikes on Beijing, New York, Moscow, Tokyo, London, Sao Paulo. Cut off the heads of human civilization in one brutal moment. No resistance, Cecik reported. No missiles, no fighters, nothing. They've surrendered before we even... The first Vorkath destroyer simply ceased to exist. One moment it was descending over New York, its weapons charging. The next, a lance of blue-white light carved it in half. The ship's reactor detonated, a brief sun blooming in the morning sky. Then another ship died. And another. From the ground, from the oceans, from orbits beyond the Vorkath sensors, the Sentinels opened fire. Weapons that humanity had built in secret during the darkest days of the Cold War. When survival seemed impossible and cooperation became mandatory. Weapons powered by fusion cores guided by quantum processors defending a species that had learned one terrible lesson in the 20th century. Never again. Evasive action, Krelvax screamed. But his ships were atmospheric craft now, caught in gravity's well. The Sentinels had perfect firing solutions, perfect targeting. They had been waiting, learning, watching for 2 centuries, and they were patient. 60 ships died in the first minute, 200 in the first 5. Retreat, Krelvax ordered. Full burn! Get us out of the gravity well! But in that bunker, Sarah Chen had pressed another button, and in the silence of space, hundreds of objects that the Vorkath had dismissed as debris, as dead satellites, as space junk, suddenly came alive. They were small, no larger than a car, but they moved with impossible precision, their engines cold and dark until this moment. The Vorkath Empire had conquered 47 systems. They had never encountered a species that weaponized patience itself. The first wave of hunter drones reached the retreating fleet. Each one carried a payload of directed nuclear explosives, shaped charges that could punch through battle armor like paper. They moved in swarms, learning from each other, adapting in real time. Admiral Krelvax watched his fleet die around him. How? He whispered. They were supposed to be primitive. They were supposed to be easy. As the Sovereign blade shuddered from impact after impact, its shields failing, Sessek looked at his admiral with eyes full of terrible understanding. Sir, he said quietly, I don't think they showed us everything they had. The last thing Krelvax saw before his flagship's core breached was Earth, spinning peacefully below, its lights beginning to flicker back on, like a sleeping giant opening its eyes. The awakening, the survivors of the Vorkath fleet, barely 300 ships out of 3,000, limped away from Earth's gravity well, their hulls scorched, their crews shattered. They had expected easy prey. They found apex predators wearing the masks of sheep. But Earth's silence was about to end in a way that would reshape galactic politics forever. In Geneva, the Emergency Assembly convened for the first time since its creation. 200 years ago, when nuclear weapons brought humanity to the brink of extinction, the world's leaders made a choice. They created a hidden government, a shadow council with one purpose: ensure that humanity would never be caught defenseless again. They built the Sentinels in secret. They mined the asteroid belt. They established colonies that appeared on no public maps. They created weapons that would make alien invasors regret the day they looked at Earth with hungry eyes. And they waited. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo addressed the council, her voice carrying to every bunker, every hidden facility, every underground city that now housed 3 billion people safely evacuated from the surface in less than an hour. Another miracle the Vorkath never suspected. They came to our world uninvited, she said. They came to enslave or destroy us. They believed we were weak because we sought peace. They made the oldest mistake in history. They mistook patience for powerlessness. On screens across every hidden facility, the footage played. The Vorkath fleet's destruction, watched by billions, not in horror but in grim satisfaction. Humanity had kept its secrets well. Now we must answer a question, Amara continued. Do we return to our peaceful ways, or do we show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth? On Mars Colony, a thriving city of 2 million that officially didn't exist, Captain James Rodriguez suited up in armor that had never been shown to the public. Power-assisted exoskeleton, energy shields, plasma weapons, technology that humanity had been refining in the shadows while the galaxy watched them play with rockets. How's it feel, Captain? Asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka, checking her own armor's seals. Like I've been training my whole life for something I never wanted to do, James admitted. The expeditionary fleet was gathering in orbit around Mars, 500 warships that humanity had built in secret shipyards beyond the asteroid belt. Not as large as the Vorkath fleet, but they didn't need to be. Humanity had spent 2 centuries thinking about space warfare. The Vorkath had spent those same years growing complacent through easy conquests. All ships, came the voice of Admiral David Okafor from the flagship Determination. We're not seeking revenge. We're delivering a message. The galaxy needs to understand humanity will defend itself, and we will defend any species that cannot defend themselves. The age of easy conquest is over. The fleet began to move. In the Vorkath home system, 600 light-years from Earth, Emperor Thraknor received reports of the disaster with increasing alarm. 3,000 ships reduced to 300, his finest admiral dead. And now, impossible reports. Human ships were in transit, somehow faster than Vorkath vessels, moving through space with techniques the Empire didn't understand. How long until they arrive? He demanded. 3 days, Emperor. His science advisor trembled. Their drives. We have no explanation. They shouldn't be possible. Thraknor looked at the hologram of Earth spinning innocently in the void. Humanity had appeared nowhere near the galactic stage. No known colonies. No known fleet. They should have been victims. What did we miss? He wondered aloud. His intelligence chief, a grizzled veteran named Vostek, stepped forward. Emperor, we reviewed all surveillance. They deliberately appeared primitive. The signals we intercepted were theater. They wanted us to see weakness. Why? So we would attack first. So they could claim self-defense. Vostek brought up new data. We found evidence of Martian colonies 50 years old. Asteroid mining going back a century. They've been in space longer than they admitted. Much longer. Thraknor felt cold realization settle over him. They were waiting for someone to be stupid enough to attack them. Yes, Emperor. Recall all fleets. Every ship. We need to defend the homeworld. But even as the orders went out, both leaders knew it wouldn't be enough. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vorkath system, not at the homeworld, at a mining colony on the system's edge, where 3,000 Vorkath civilians worked extracting rare elements. Admiral Okafor broadcast on all frequencies, in perfectly translated Vorkathi. This is the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We are not here to massacre civilians. We are here to speak with your Emperor. On the surface of the mining world, Vorkath workers stared at the sky, where human ships hung like a promise of destruction, but they didn't fire. James Rodriguez led his team down to the surface in a dropship, landing in the center of the main colony. When the ramp lowered, the Vorkath saw humans in combat armor that made their own soldiers look like they were wearing ceremonial dress. But James removed his helmet, breathing the colony's atmosphere without protection. We're not here to hurt you, he said. We're here to talk. The colony administrator, a female Vorkath named Tessara, approached cautiously. You destroyed our fleet. Our military. Your military attacked our world without warning or declaration, Yuki said, stepping beside James. They tried to kill billions. We stopped them. Now we're offering your empire something it's never offered anyone else, a chance to surrender peacefully. The Emperor will never surrender. Then he'll watch his colonies starve, James said quietly. We've studied your logistics. Every world in your empire depends on shipments from 20 central hubs. We can blockade all 20 simultaneously. No food, no medicine, no supplies. We can bring your entire civilization to its knees without firing another shot. Tessera stared at him. You would starve billions? No, James met her eyes. We would force your emperor to choose between his pride and his people. We believe he'll choose his people. Because unlike him, we've actually studied your history, your culture, your art, your music. We know you're more than just conquerors. He held out a data pad. These are our terms, read them. They're not about submission. They're about coexistence. About joining a galaxy where disputes are settled with words, not weapons. Tessara took the pad with trembling hands. As she read, her eyes widened. You're offering us trade agreements? Technology sharing? This is not how conquerors behave. We're not conquerors, Yuki said. We're defenders who got tired of being underestimated. 3 days later, Emperor Thraknor stood before his throne room's main screen, watching James Rodriguez address the entire Vorkath Empire. The human spoke clearly without arrogance, laying out terms that were surprisingly fair. Reparations, yes. Demilitarization of conquered worlds, yes. But also mutual defense pacts. Cultural exchange. A seat in the new galactic council that humanity was proposing. You tried to destroy us, James said. But we don't want to destroy you. We want you to understand that there's a better way. That strength doesn't have to mean domination. That species can be strong and still be kind. Thraknor looked at his advisors, at the military commanders who wanted revenge, at the civilians who were already protesting in the streets demanding peace. He thought about the 47 species his empire had conquered. He thought about what humanity could do to them if they wanted revenge. And he thought about the fact that they didn't want revenge. They wanted something harder to achieve, peace. Open a channel, he said quietly. I will speak to this human captain. When James's face appeared on the screen, Thraknor saw something that shook him to his core. Not triumph. Not superiority, sadness. We didn't want this war, James said. But we're ready to end it. The question is, are you? Thraknor took a deep breath. Tell me about this galactic council. The Covenant news of the Vorkath Empire's surrender rippled across the galaxy like a shock wave through still water. In the Senate chambers of the Zelakian hegemony, diplomats watched footage of human ships leaving Vorkath space. Not as conquerors claiming territory, but as peacekeepers withdrawing after a treaty signing. It was unprecedented. It was confusing. It was terrifying. They could have taken everything, said Ambassador Vrelkos, his crystalline form reflecting light across the chamber. The Vorkath were defenseless. Earth could have added 47 systems to an empire we didn't know they had. Instead, they freed those systems, responded Ambassador Chen-Lin, humanity's first official representative to the galactic community. She stood calmly at the podium, her elderly face carrying the weight of truths about to be revealed. Because Earth doesn't build empires. We tried that. It didn't go well. We learned. She activated a hologram, Earth's history compressed and translated. The wars, the genocides, the near extinction, and then the choice. Cooperate or die. We almost destroyed ourselves, Lin said quietly. Nuclear weapons brought us to the brink in the 20th century. We could have ended it all. Instead, we made a different decision. We created the Silent Covenant, an agreement signed by every nation on Earth. We would hide our true strength. We would appear divided and weak, and we would wait. Wait for what? Demanded the Zelakian Prime Minister. For someone to attack us. For proof that the galaxy needed to change. Lin's eyes swept the chamber. For 200 years, we watched your governments through quantum-entangled probes you never detected. We saw the Vorkath conquer world after world. We saw the hegemony enslave 3 species. We saw the Krenthian Dominion commit genocide against the Willick people and call it integration. The chamber erupted. Denials, accusations, outrage. Lin waited for silence. When she spoke again, her voice carried across every broadcast in known space. We have evidence, all of it. Every war crime. Every enslaved population. Every broken treaty. We've been watching for 2 centuries, documenting everything, waiting for the right moment to say enough. She brought up new images. Human colonies on worlds the galaxy had never heard of. Research stations in dark nebulae. Mining operations in rogue planet systems. We didn't hide because we were weak. We hid because we wanted to know what kind of galaxy we were dealing with before we announced ourselves. And what did you conclude? Asked Minister Korvath of the peaceful Letharian Commonwealth, one of the few species that had refused to participate in expansion wars. Lin smiled at them. That some of you get it, some of you understand that cooperation beats conquest, that diversity strengthens instead of threatens. Those species will be our friends, our partners. Together we're going to build something new. And the rest of us? Relikos asked coldly. You'll adapt. Or you'll find yourselves alone in a galaxy that's moved past you. On Terra Station, humanity's new orbital capital, constructed in weeks from components built over decades, President Catherine Reeves addressed Earth and its colonies. Some will call us manipulative, she said. They'll say we deceived the galaxy. And they're right. We did, we had to. Because we learned something that many species haven't learned yet. Sometimes peace requires strength, and sometimes strength requires patience. She looked at the camera, speaking directly to billions. Our ancestors who created the Silent Covenant knew they were taking a risk. They knew that hiding our capabilities might mean suffering and attack, but they believed that attack would unite us and that unity would change everything. They were right. The footage changed. Not to weapons or ships, but to something more powerful. Humans and Vorkath working together. The first joint research station. The first cultural exchange program. The first Vorkath children attending schools on Mars colony. Openly acknowledged now. Learning beside human children. We didn't just defeat the Vorkath, Reeves continued. We gave them something they'd never had. A chance to choose peace without losing honor. And they took it. They're our partners now. Our friends. Because that's what humans do. We turn enemies into allies. We build bridges instead of walls. It's literally our greatest talent. James Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the Determination, watching Earth spin below. Yuki joined him, 2 coffee cups in hand, another human custom that was rapidly spreading to other species. Feeling philosophical, Captain? She asked, handing him a cup. Thinking about what comes next, James admitted. We showed the galaxy our teeth. Now we have to show them our heart. You think they'll accept the council? The treaty? James nodded. Most will. Some won't, but that's okay. Change takes time. Our grandparents understood that. That's why they built all this in secret. They knew it would take generations. Below them, a transport ship launched from Earth's surface. Inside were the first wave of human diplomats, heading to 12 different species to begin peace negotiations. Not from a position of weakness, but not from arrogance either. From confidence backed by capability, tempered with genuine desire for cooperation. You know what's funny? Yuki said. The galaxy thought we were naive. Peace-loving primitives. They had no idea that we're peace-loving because we know exactly how terrible war can be. That's the secret they're learning. James agreed. The species that scare us aren't the aggressive ones. They're predictable. It's the peaceful ones you have to watch. Because they've thought about violence, understood its costs, and chosen a different path. When you finally force them to fight, they don't fight to win battles. They fight to end wars. 6 months after the Vorkath War, historians were already calling it that, though it lasted less than a week, the first session of the Galactic Cooperative Council convened on Terra Station. 53 species sent representatives. Not all of them friends. Not all of them willing. But all of them present because the alternative was being left behind as the galaxy reorganized around Earth's new paradigm. Secretary General Amara Okonkwo, now serving as the Council's first chairperson, looked around the assembled delegates. Vorkath sitting next to Letherian, Zilikian diplomats awkwardly making small talk with former rival species, and humans everywhere facilitating conversations, offering translations, serving coffee. Esteemed representatives, Amara began, we're here to write new rules. Not Earth's rules. Our rules. Every species here has a voice. Every culture has value. We're not asking anyone to surrender their identity. We're asking everyone to recognize that we're stronger together than apart. Ambassador Tessara, the same Vorkath from the mining colony, now her species' chief diplomat, stood. Chairperson, I have a question. Why did humanity wait? If you've had this technology, this capability for 2 centuries, why let the Vorkath Empire conquer 47 systems? Why let so many suffer? The chamber went silent. Amara met her eyes. Because we learned not to be arrogant. We learned that imposing our will, even for good reasons, creates resentment and rebellion. The galaxy had to choose to change. We could give you a reason, a catalyst, but we couldn't force the outcome. You had to make the choice, and if we had chosen wrong, then we would have protected the innocent and hoped you'd learn from it. Amara's voice was firm. We won't be the galaxy's police. We can't save everyone. But we can offer an alternative. A way forward that doesn't require endless conquest or submission. The rest is up to all of you. Over the next months, the Council drafted the Covenant of Stars, mutual defense pacts, fair trade agreements, rules for first contact with emerging species, protections for individual rights regardless of species, mechanisms for resolving disputes without warfare. Not every species signed. Some retreated into isolation, unwilling to change, but most did, because humanity had proven something that many had forgotten. That cooperation wasn't weakness. That diversity wasn't a liability. That species could be different without being enemies. 10 years later, James Rodriguez, now Admiral Rodriguez, though he still insisted people call him James, stood in the same observation deck on the Determination. The ship was older now, its hull bearing the scars of a dozen peacekeeping missions, but it still flew. Beside him, his daughter Maria pressed her face against the viewport. 8 years old, born in the new era, she had never known a galaxy at war. "Daddy, why are there so many different kinds of ships?" she asked, pointing to the traffic around Terra Station. James smiled. "Because there are so many different kinds of people, sweetheart. Forcath traders bringing spices from their homeworld. Letherian researchers sharing new discoveries. Zelakian engineers building the next generation star sail. They're all here because they chose to work together. Were they always friends? No, some of them used to be enemies. But humans taught them something important." "What?" James thought about his answer carefully. About the silent covenant his great-grandparents had helped create. About the billions who had lived their lives maintaining the deception, building in secret, waiting for a moment that might never come. About patience and hope. And the stubborn human belief that things could get better. "We taught them that peace isn't the absence of conflict," he said finally. "It's the presence of justice. And that anyone can be forgiven if they're willing to change." Maria considered this. Even the bad guys? Especially the bad guys. Because the scary truth is, Princess, everyone thinks they're the good guys. The only way to break that cycle is to show them a better way, then give them the chance to take it. Below them, Earth turned in the darkness, still blue, still green, still home to billions who would never know how close they had come to extinction, who would never fully understand the sacrifice of generations who had lived in secret, who had built wonders they couldn't share, all to give humanity a chance, and around them, the galaxy changed, slowly, imperfectly, with setbacks and struggles, but changed nonetheless because humanity had taught the stars a lesson. That the scariest thing in the universe isn't the species that can destroy you, it's the species that can destroy you and chooses not to. The species that offers you a third option when you only saw two. The species that remembers its own mistakes and refuses to let others repeat them. Humanity had looked at the galaxy and seen not enemies to conquer, but allies waiting to be found, and in the end, that made all the difference. Epilogue. In a classroom on Vorkath Prime, a young student raised her hand. "Teacher, is it true that humans almost died out before they reached the stars?" The teacher, an elderly Vorkath who had lived through the war, nodded. "Yes, they nearly destroyed themselves with weapons even more terrible than what they used against our fleet." "Then why did they stop?" The teacher pulled up an image. A photograph from Earth's ancient history. 2 humans, different colors, different cultures, different beliefs, shaking hands across a table. Behind them, representatives of 100 nations, all watching, all hoping. "Because they realized something that took us much longer to understand," the teacher said softly. "They realized that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest or the most ruthless. It's about being wise enough to know when to fight and when to forgive, when to hide and when to reveal, when to stand alone and when to stand together." "Are humans the best species in the galaxy?" another student asked. The teacher laughed. "No, they're messy, emotional. They argue constantly among themselves. They make mistakes, lots of mistakes." She paused, looking at the image of Earth on her screen. "But they have something special. They never give up. Not on themselves, not on each other, and not on us, even though we attacked them, especially because we attacked them. Because that gave them the chance to show us who they really are. Not warriors, not conquerors, but builders, bridge builders, peace builders, future builders." She looked around the classroom at faces young and eager. "That's why we study human history now. Not to glorify war, but to understand peace. Because the humans didn't just defeat us, they showed us something better. And that's the greatest victory of all." Outside the classroom window, a human transport ship landed at the spaceport, bringing teachers, engineers, artists, people building futures instead of weapons. And across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds in 100 languages, children learned the same lesson. That humanity said fuck yeah not to war, but to peace, not to conquest, but to cooperation, not to isolation, but to connection, and that maybe, just maybe, the scariest thing humans could be was the friend you almost didn't have because you made the mistake of attacking them. First, the galaxy had learned, and it would never forget.